We just don't seem to be able to talk. I switched to a different antenna out in the car, thinking, well, maybe my antenna or my coax is bad. Doesn't seem to make any difference, so.
Ooh, I'm going to have to change this. I got to put it back in the case to.
Oh, that's right, that heat sink.
So this will only take a second.
The main power is tied to this thing for heat sink, and you didn't have it on. It gets very, very hot. It tells you in the manual, don't run it very long without the heat sink. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate NetRoms. This is where we were getting to last month sometime there during our last class. And then we'll demonstrate the K nodes for you. One thing I meant to point out last was that we were here last. The fact that this is a KAM and nodes, forget that in relationship to this TNC. As far as we're concerned, it's just a TNC. That's a camera 232. The command you're using to talk to these systems is totally separate from your TNC. Regardless of whether you're running a KAM or a PK232 or an MFJ, you would say C space DEN for connected node DEN. Now that is different if you're running a software package like PackRat or Packet Gold or whatever. Then that modifies your commands, and we can't really address that right now. You'd have to talk to the particular software. For example, on Packet Gold, I would just type DEN and hit the F7 key, and it would do the space DEN and take care of all that for me. So we're talking about running the TNC using a dumb terminal or a computer that's emulating a dumb terminal, where you have to talk to the TNC directly.
Now, if I don't break the regulator, we're...
Yeah, that's very, very critical on that thing. Okay, we're at our command line right now, which means that anytime you type anything, the TNC is going to intercept it and do something with it, or barf if he doesn't know what to do with it. It won't go out on the air. So now Joe has typed C space W0TX-7. We are going to another KAM, which is a K node. And I don't know, maybe we ought to go ahead and just talk about this since we're there and then work with the NetRom.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and do that. So we have connected to a KAM. This happens to be the Denver Radio Club station. It crossbands between 14105 and 14501. It has a -3, which is known as a gateway, which we'll talk about, and then it has a BBS called DRC box. We could actually connect a DRC box and we'd be connected to a BBS. So we get some information here. Wild node, you see the word wild, that means this is set up where I could connect to W0TX-5-4. In other words, it's wild. As long as I use the call and I don't use the main call W0TX, because if I do that, I'd connect to the keyboard. Okay? So in all these K nodes, if you connect to the call, just the call by itself, no SSID, you're normally going to connect to the keyboard. If somebody connects to KE0QA right now, he would show up right here on our screen. If we were to connect to KE0QH7 or whatever Joe might have in here, we wouldn't see it. He'd be connected to that. Okay? So in this case, I can connect to W0TX, which is the keyboard. I can connect to DRC box, which is the BBS. Or I can connect to the actual node itself, and since it's got the wild node, I can connect to -6 or -3 or -4.
-3.
So what's your
Yeah, you can connect to -3, even though it's the gateway. I didn't think that either, Ty. You accidentally did it one day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, believe it or not. We'll talk about this later on.
What would your next command if you go connect to -3? Or would you just type CW0TX-3 then? Or since you're already connected?
Once I'm connected to it, I've got to tell it to do something. And here's the things I tell it to do.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and type the help. Okay, now, if I want to connect to somebody on the port that I'm on. There's two ports here. We're on the 2-meter port. If I want to connect to anybody on this port, I would say C space and the call sign space S. I don't have to use S, but it's very handy. What that tells the node is connect to this guy, and if he happens to fade out on me, this is pretty important on HF. If he fades out on me or disconnects from the node, don't disconnect me. Let me stay connected to you. In other words, if I say C space G3 XYZ out there in England, it's just an example, and then he fades out and the node disconnects the link from him to it, it will turn around and disconnect me, and I got to reconnect. So if I say C space G0, whatever it was, space S, it will tell me that he faded out and he's disconnected, but I'm still connected to the node. You can see where this is important. If I go to a node, tell that node to connect to another node, say in the East Coast, tell that node to connect to a node in Africa, and tell that node to connect to a guy in England. If I didn't use the stay command and the guy in England faded out to the node in Africa, everything crashes and I'm back here all by myself. If I tell each node to connect to this following node with the stay command, that remote node out there will say G3 what's-his-face went away, but I still have all my nodes connected. That's what the stay command does. It says if you lose the other side, don't disconnect going back the other way. Because that's very frustrating. If one of the links goes down, everything goes bang, 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 and there you are sitting there, you got to start all over again. So if I want to connect to somebody on the port I'm on, I use this.
I want to keep this going, though.
Okay. Now, if I want to connect to somebody on the opposite port, I would say X. See, I don't have to type stuff out. Just X space the call sign and then the S. Right here. X G3. So if I'm on 2 meters, I would say X G3 XYZ space S. And then it would call on 20 meters because I'm up here on 2 meters. And then if all of a sudden the 20-meter path fades out or his radio blows up, it will just come back and tell me, okay, he's gone, he's disconnected, what do you want to do next? You'll get this command line back. So the X is for cross-connecting, the C is for connecting to the same port, on the same port that you're on. Okay? B is by. If Joe types a B, we're gone. So we don't want to do that. Now, let's say we want to know what nodes this node hears on both ports. We type N space L. Nodes long. We could do nodes short, nodes, or nodes long. Well, the long tells you how it heard it and where it heard it. Maybe we'll have a good example of this. Okay, there we go. Okay, if you have an X behind it, that means that that station was heard on the other port. So if you're on HF, that means that was heard on 2 meters. If you're on VHF, it was heard on 20. Our case, we're on 2 meters, so W4 EAW-7 node was heard on the other port. That happens to be Cummings, Georgia. There's a call sign, date and time that was last heard. Now, this station was IDing through KD4K. So in other words, he was coming up and beaconing his ID through this station, wherever it is, and it was repeating it. Now, if you look up here, there's no X. So this is on 2 meters. This happens to be up in Cheyenne. He's IDing via FNL. See the asterisks? When you got an asterisk here and here, that means we heard FNL. Come back down to earth here. We heard this station beaconing via FNL. In other words, we heard FNL repeating the beacon or the ID. We did not hear this guy direct. If we did, it would have been like here. We heard this guy direct, so we don't bother saying whether we heard this one or not. In this case, the asterisk behind it means we didn't hear him, but we heard FNL, which is in Fort Collins, repeat or digi his ID. So if we wanted to connect to him, we would have to say, since it's on the same channel we're on, C space KA7DXJ-7 via FNL. So then our connector would go out, FNL would hear it, and he would repeat it. Now here's the case here, and I don't know why the CAMs do this. The later firmware versions do it, the early ones didn't. Here's VE1LMO-7. We didn't hear him, but we heard him here through this station, and yet it didn't put an asterisk. I can't explain that.
Not reliable.
Here's a guy beaconing on HF through several of these guys.
I want to take you up here.
Okay.
How you know?
I haven't figured this guy out. I haven't tried this. PKT small b PQ there. There's the call and there's the time. Here's another one. This is a TCP IP address, Les's favorite. Beaconing through FNL. We don't hear him, but we hear an FNL repeating him. So anyway, here's how you see what nodes are out there. And if we want to connect to W4EAW-7, we would type X space W4EAW-7, and we don't have to say via because we heard him direct, space S. Okay. So anyway, this is how you hear the nodes. Here's Argentina. We heard him at 1816. Now, the fact that this guy was not heard for the last several hours doesn't mean he's there. These nodes come up with special IDs. And they may ID every hour or every half hour. And if his ID got clobbered, then it wouldn't show here. Why don't you just back up and do a question mark, just move it up one line. There we go. Anyway, we may have missed the last 4 IDs that this guy generated due to QSB, fading, clobbering, and whatever. So the fact that he hasn't shown up for several hours doesn't mean he's not there.
I was going to keep us going here.
Okay, why don't you go ahead.
Bill, what's that for?
Well, if you do just use this carriage return, he'll just repeat the command line here, not shift all this off.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
What's that 1400 EA? That what does that designate?
That's the TCP IP address. That's one of your buddies IDing, TCP IP station.
Yeah, but you don't use call sign?
WA7NW.
Well, here's his call sign right here. That's him, but that's that's his address that he's sending out, or you could look at it as an alias.
Oh, okay.
In other words, here's network. This guy's calling his node network, but actually it's LU10GG-4 down there in Argentina.
Okay.
See?
Say, Bill, in this KAM protocol, if you want to call it that, could you connect to WA7NWP, or do you have to use the alias?
Either way, it depends how he has it set up. Most of the time it's best to go with the alias because sometimes they'll use their call as the call of the station, but you can't really connect to it unless you want to go to the keyboard. So you're better off on most of these, like Dave, if you connect to WG0N, in his case, you're going to connect to his keyboard. If you connect to WG0N-7, you're going to connect to his CAM, just like we've done here. And he happens to be beaconing through Colorado Springs Peak.
I've got one more. How come there are stations up there where you see via when there's no asterisks?
Well, as I say, some of the newer firmware does this, and I don't understand that. In other words, right here, we did not hear this station, but we heard it through here, but he didn't put the asterisk. I can't explain that. The older version of CAMs didn't do that, but the newer ones I've noticed do that. And nobody's been able to answer that question for me. The books don't tell you this.
Well, if you start out at 2 meters and just connect to HF,
Okay.
and tie into a node, or tie into one at the other end to HF, and ask him for a node list, and you see something like this. When you see the X, does that mean that's a station that's on 2 meters?
If the X is on, then that means he's got a second port
Yeah.
that's active. And in your logon, he'll tell you, he may be crossed to 40 meters. All you know when you see the X is the gateway function is turned on, and there are 2 ports active.
The point I'm trying to get at is...
But you don't know where they
back
are.
to him via HF,
Right.
and you see an X
At his node.
on his node list.
Right.
That means it's on some other port, whether it's another HF frequency
Yeah.
or a 2-meter frequency.
Yeah, in other words, the question is, if you see the X on his listing, does that mean that's on his other port? That is correct. And when you log into it, he should tell you, like TX, when we logged in, we told people we're on 145.01 and we're on 14.105. So when we log into W4EAW-7 with the X command, we will get a log that says Cummings, Georgia, and then it says that his port is on 14.105 and 145.69, I think, some funny frequency like that. And when you do the listing, anything that's on his list is the same thing. If it's X, it's on the other port that you're on. Because as far as he's concerned, you're on his HF port.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that you're on 2 meters here. See? Question?
Can a technician, is W0TX the control operator? Can a
Yes.
technician then-
Cross-banding is perfectly legal because if you're a technician and you're on 2 meters, TX is on 20, and it's its class of license.
So technician could use that.
Oh, yes. There was a lot of questions on that, so I got it in writing when we first put up TX, so that's one of the things we wondered. You know, because if somebody's over at your house, they can talk on your microphone as long as you're there. So yeah, it is legal. So anyway, I could log into Cummings, Georgia, and I could see that on his, there's a call with an X on his NL on 2 meters. So I would X space to that call sign, I would do an NL, and I would see a list, and maybe his port is on, his other port's on 40 meters, and I do an NL, and I see something with an X that I want to connect to, then I would type X space so-and-so to tell his CAM to connect me over to 40 meters to that guy. So you got to remember where you're at as you go through these nodes and you're changing bands and frequencies. Les can tell you, I've gone through 7 or 8 frequencies halfway around the world and then connected to them and say hi. And you got to remember where you're at when you want to, do I want us to do C or X, you know, and all that.
Any calls not a telephone, to see if I got it.
Right. Okay, that's how you see nodes. Now let's see how you see who is there, which is JL. See, if I use an N without an L, I wouldn't get this part. N would just give me the call signs, and that's it. Short listing. See, there was 2 or 3 packets that came down. We only got the first one. Here's a CE6. What's that, Cuba? Talking to Argentina. Where's CE?
Cuba.
Cuba, okay. Now, the last entry here will always be you, because when you ask for the list of who did you hear, the last thing at that point you heard was you asking. So here's KE0QA-1. You got to get on the air more often so I can remember your call, Joe.
You didn't upgrade your clock. 658, 758.
Well, we'll have to talk to our clock keeper. Anyway, here's us on VHF talking to W0TX-7 at 1858. Right before us, we heard a VE1 FCS-15 connecting to this W4EAW-7 node. He is probably coming through a node. He's probably on 2 meters somewhere because he's got a -15. Okay? Remember we talked about earlier, when you connect to a node and then you go out, it puts a -15 on your call? So at your TNC, when it hears that node transmitting, doesn't think that's you that it's wanting to talk to when it's trying to call out? In other words, if I type X space W4EAW-7 down here, W0TX sends a connect packet. In this case, since Joe has a -1, it would theoretically be a -14. Remember we talked about it's -15, if there's a number there, it subtracts it. So on 2 meters, on 20 meters, you would say, see KE0QA-14 sending out connect request to this call. So it's your call down there. Now this is one of the disadvantages. We don't know where this dash 15 is. We cannot connect to him because he's on 2 meters. So don't make the mistake of seeing this guy down here. Let's say you're down on 20 meters, or you're up on 2 meters, and you're seeing somebody with the dash 15 calling, because you won't be able to connect to him. That's the node repeating his connect package. You can only connect to his TNC. You cannot connect to the node using his call. You see what I'm saying?
No.
Okay, some node somewhere has received a connect from VE1 FCS. And at that node, this fellow's typed X space W4EA W-7. That node went out on 2 meters and is sending his connect packets out. And when he gets the UA back, the node tells him you're connected, and then he sends info packs out. Okay, the node is not him. This is not him. The node is VE1 ABC. So I can connect to VE1 ABC. But if I say connect to VE1 FCS-15, he's not there. He's up here connected to the node, and the node is repeating, not digying, but buffering and then repeating his packets. Remember how he talked about why you want to connect to a node and tell a node to connect somebody? Because each component is responsible for its link. So some node is repeating his packets. And if I try to connect to dash 15, he's not down there. The node is there, VE1 ABC, and I could connect to the node if I knew that was it and tell the node to connect to him.
But you know that by looking at the SSID or...
Yeah, when you see a 15, usually people don't put a 15. The only reason Joe's got a dash 1 behind his call is because if he sits here and transmits to W0TX, W0TX answers, and his node at home sees W0TX using his call, and he says, disconnect mode, I'm not connected to you. And all of a sudden our connection will go down, because TX say, oh, okay. So he'll send a disconnect out and he'll dump us, see. So Joe had to put a 1 behind his call to keep his station at home from canning our circuit. Can't have 2 stations on the frequency of the same call. But anyway, in this case, since it's a dash 15, you can pretty well say that it's somebody that's going through a node somewhere. And the node is repeating him, but he's not there. He's on 2 meters, so you cannot connect to him. You can connect to the node and tell the node to connect to him.
Question. All right, then the one directly above it, the dash 7, you would assume that you could connect to it.
Yeah, dash 7 and dash 10 are, by convention, node calls. Some people use dash 4. You can assume that that's a node.
All right, and no dash?
Now here's a guy going through 2. No dash is a guy.
Okay.
See, now I cannot connect to this guy. Person. Could be a woman. I'm sorry. Forgive me. You cannot connect to this station. That's non-sexist, right? Because our node heard N1 EJO talking to N5 LUC. Now, if we heard N5 LUC talking back somewhere in here, you would see N5 LUC and then N1 EJO. See, we're only hearing one side of the conversation here because we heard the other side, then we'd show his packets down here somewhere. Make sense? If I wanted to talk to this guy, I could do it via this guy. I could digi through him and talk to him because we know these two can talk.
If I hook up, Bill, to that node with the 15, and he hooks up with whoever it is, will I then get a listing from that? Can I get a listing from that node?
Yeah, any node you can connect to, you can do an NL or a JL. K node we're talking about now. We're not talking about NetRoms and DNets. So the principle is the same. I can connect to a node, tell that node to connect to another node. One thing we can do, well, before we do that, let's see if there's anything unusual in here. Okay, we didn't hear the CE6 direct, but we heard him going through TC, whatever that is, working this guy. Here's a guy beaconing. That happens to be Tim. I'll see somebody beaconing on 2 meters. On 20 meters right now. I could cross connect to him. See, he's down there. It'll say CQ or beacon, ID, whatever he's set up to do. That, you can assume that that's a node. If you see an alias like that, you can assume that's a node. Now, here's, is that COS or is that FNL? Anyway, somebody's ID in FNL, okay. Okay, just for this, do a C space. We have another node on the frequency called DENVER. You may have seen it on the other chart. That happens to be WG0N-10. So we're going to connect to this node, but we're going to be on 2 meters.
DENVER?
DENVER. Okay, it said link made. Okay, now, no X. So I know right now that he is only here on 2 meters with me. If this had been 20 meters, let's say DENVER was on 20 meters, we'd have done X DENVER, and then we'd have been over on the 20 meter side, and we'd have seen no X, so we know that he didn't have another port somewhere. See? But now see, we can do the same thing. We can do a C to connect to somebody. We can do a JL to see who it hears. We can do an NL to see what nodes it hears.
What's PAVH?
That's a typo. That's supposed to be path. I have to tell Dave about that.
Yeah, look at his bulletin board call. WG1N?
Boy,
You don't suppose we got an error, do you?
no.
No. 3,000 years.
Okay, now we can demonstrate the stay command. Go ahead and type a B.
I don't think we, oh, okay. Well, we didn't do a stay.
Oh, we didn't. Okay, now you're going to see everything crash. Everything just crashed because we didn't do a stay here. I didn't realize that. We just demonstrated why you don't want to leave that S off there. Because see, I might go out 3 nodes. Let's say I sit here and I go to TX and then I cross connect to a station in Florida on 20 meters, and then I go to Africa, which I did the other day, and then go up to Europe, and then I connect to a guy and it's his mailbox, but he's not there. Well, I can issue a buy to his mailbox will disconnect, but all my nodes will stay up, and then I can look around in Europe and see who else I want to talk to. If I didn't use the stay command and I disconnect his mailbox, then everything falls apart just like it did here, and I got to start all over.
You have to issue a stay command for each connect.
Yes, each time you connect,
Okay.
each time you tell them to connect somebody else, if you want that to stay, then you have to issue it. If you, let's say you had 4 nodes and you used the stay command for the first 2 and you didn't the 3rd one, and then beyond the 4th one the station disconnects on you, you will drop back to the last node where you use the stay command and stop at that point. That part will stay up.
I guess it,
See, now we're back to our command line from TX. Disconnected by DEN. We told DEN to hang up on it, I mean Denver to hang up on us, and he did. See, node TX says he's went away. So basically, this is how your K nodes work. One thing we haven't talked about is abort. Type C space K6MGM, because we know he's not there. Okay, now, depending upon how the sysop has W0TX-7 set up, he's going to call this station anywhere from 7 to 15 times, depending upon what he's got in the retry. Remember we talked about retry? How many times you retry before you give up? And then he'll come back and say aborted. Well, I could type another command now, like C space W6OAV if I wanted to, but he's going to sit there and try the whole number of retries before he goes to the next call. So if I want to kill this, I just type abort. Maybe A will do it. I always, for some reason, type the whole word. And we told him, hey, stop, I want to do something else. So I have a choice of going either way. So the abort command kills your last command. So again, I can say, who did you hear? Who did you hear at what time, but don't give me the path. which is short. Who did you hear plus the path? What nodes did you hear? What nodes did you hear at what time? What nodes did you hear at what time via what path? I want to cross to the other port, the opposite one that I'm on, or I want to connect to somebody on the port that I'm on. You all that make sense?
Guess what?
You broke it.
It's broken.
Okay, as soon as it's done doing what it's going to do, let's try to connect to DEN, and we'll go through a NetRom.
When you go to
Well,
X-ray
let's,
and you type S for stay,
Mm-hmm.
do you type stay for when you're, like if you're on 2 meters and you're just connecting to 2 meters, would you type stay there too?
I always do out of habit, because that way if something happens and I decide I want to drop the whole link, I can go ahead and do it.
You have control of it.
I have control that way, you know, because there's been more than once where I've typed out something and all of a sudden I go, oh gee, I wish I put stay because he's not there and I could have done this, or you know. In other words, you got everything to gain by putting stay down and you really have nothing to gain by not. So it's a good one. Okay, now here's the first characteristic of Thenets and NetRoms. Thenets and NetRoms basically are the same. NetRom was invented by some outfit called System 2000 or something like that. And then some Germans came up and invented Thenet, which does the same thing, and there's been a battle going on for years whether they pirated the software or not. NetRom costs you dollars, Thenet is free. So the Software 2000 people filed a lawsuit, and I don't know whatever happened, never did hear. But here's the first characteristic. It'll just say link made, or if you connect direct, it'll just say connected to. You don't get anything else, because why clobber the frequencies by putting out a command line that everybody knows once you've done it. So just type a question mark, or anything that's not a valid command, and you'll get the command line. Boy, what was that funny sounding thing? Question?
This is either the net or NetRom then?
Yes.
Okay.
They both act pretty much the same. So we typed a question mark. And it came back and said, this is DEN, who is KQ0J-2. Here's your commands: buy, connect, CQ, herd, info, nodes, routes, and users. Well, let's see who this guy is. So let's do an I.
this is always real descriptive.
Well, in this case it is. The earlier versions of Thenet, all you could put in them was your call and your alias. Well, you already knew that, or you wouldn't have connected to them to begin with. So finally they decided, you know, this ain't too brilliant. We ought to allow people to program something in, so they did. And here's what you get. Okay?
What does VNet run on? Just the TNC?
Yeah,
It's just firmware on a TNC?
just firmware and a TNC. As is NetRom. You get a NetRom chip and you stick it into your TNC. Okay. Let's do...
Bill, I missed one thing there. You got the DEN and all that by connected separate by the question mark command.
If you type anything that's not in here, a U, an R, and if you type anything, then he'll give you the line saying, hey dummy, here's the only things you can do. Question mark's usually pretty good because, okay, here we go. See, this is its way of saying replace nerd at keyboard, Joe. Okay, let's do an H for herd.
I thought I was on a KAM. I typed X, I wanted to cross-connect.
Yeah, but you forgot the call. It'll barf too. Okay, let's go ahead and do an H for herd. Earlier versions of Thenet and NetRom did not have the herd command and the CQ command. So if you type H or CQ, which we'll talk about, and it comes back with the command line, you'll notice they're missing. Those are enhancements.
Now, he hears us, but we don't hear him. That's the problem. That's why we can't go direct to him.
Yeah, we're having trouble tonight because the other night when we were all here, we made it right to DEN with no problem. I don't know what's going on tonight. Isn't this exciting? There we go. Now, this is very crude. The way this list works is when he hears a call, he shoves it in the list. And from what I can find out, he shoves it wherever he feels like doing it. Kind of like you feel at times, right? So the order of the list has no meaning whatsoever. I've played around with this, and and here we are. If we went off the frequency and we came back, we might be here. Oh, here's old George. So the order of the list has no meaning. Once a call is heard, it's put on the list. If it isn't heard for 15 minutes, it's taken off the list. So you may try to connect to this guy and you get a failure because he left 10 minutes ago. It's very crude, but it's certainly better than what it used to be. Particularly on HF, you connect to a NetROM or a VHF or a NetROM or a Thenet on HF. Well, who's it hearing? I mean, it was blind. You had no idea. So that is an improvement. So it's heard all of these within the last 15 minutes, but the order means nothing. Okay? So if I wanted to talk to WD0 GNC, I would type C space WD0 GNC. And it would come back and say link made, and then if he had any kind of auto answer message, it would come back.
He's in Greeley.
Is he in Greeley?
How come you keep saying C and it says E?
Saying what? G and E?
Yeah. Sure looks like it for me back here.
Well, when you're standing on top of this stuff.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever been giving a talk and you walk up and you start to write a word on the board and you can't, is that spelled right? But if you go back and sit in the audience, it's obvious.
Well, I thought
I don't know what it is.
What it's doing.
A lot of people, including me, have a problem where I can write something on the screen and I can read it 10 times, it looks fine. I put it on the printer, and then I read it and there's typos and all kinds of things that I can't see on the screen. I don't know whether it's the flicker. There's some psychological thing. I know I'm that way. I proof everything on hard copy because... Anyway. Okay, let's do a users. Hopefully there's some people using this besides us. Okay. First thing it tells us is Thenet plus 2.08, so that's the version. That's how much RAM is being used or is free right at this point. That'll always change, but you don't care anyway. Uplink. Okay, we connected to W0TX. We told W0TX to connect up. Okay? So that's an uplink. Now, why don't you, well, let's see.
Down to COS, see if someone's...
Well, before we do that, let's exercise more of these. If we now told DEN to connect to K0PGM, and then we did a users, we'd see downlink K0PGM. So any link that's set up to the node is an uplink. Any link that's set out of the node is a downlink. If somebody comes in, let's say from Colorado Springs, he says connect to Denver, and then he says to DEN connect to FNL, Fort Collins, we would see circuit, and it would have the node and the call. So you'd have COS, the guy's call, circuit, FNL, and then the call to whatever FNL is connected to. I have a slide on this. Maybe I'll bring it in later on. So, what's that? You might try COS. Maybe there's somebody on there. COS is haunted. COS is so high in the air that it hears so much that sometimes it just doesn't work for beans. It can never, it always hears, it can never transmit. Sometimes it works great, and other times you might as well forget it. If I see a guy come in and it says circuit, and it doesn't show anything going out, he has come in from another node, connected to our node, but he hasn't done anything yet. He's sitting on the node. Okay? If you see a call sign that says CQ, well, then you know this guy's calling CQ. You can go ahead and connect to him. Just like the K nodes, the fact that he's on the node doesn't mean you can connect to him. You can't. You can connect to the node. If you want to connect to him, you got to go direct. But let's say we have a circuit that says Joe Blow, W6OAV, COS, circuit, FNL, KE0QA. I could connect to COS and then do a U for users again, and that might say circuit Pueblo, DPK in this case, and the call sign. So I can actually follow this, I can see the circuit and go one way and follow it and find out where the guy is and then connect to him.
Sure. How about that?
You know, they were going to take it down and do some stuff on it. Maybe they have. Try FNL. Okay, I think this is an updated version. Try users on that and see. See, we're starting to slow down because we're going through so many nodes. And 01 is a very busy frequency. Any questions on this circuit business that we talked about, how to track people down?
Would you repeat what order you're likely to see things in? For instance, well, does it just start with the originating station? Do you understand my question? What order are you going to see things in on the list when you have a circuit?
Well, it'll be like this.
Okay.
When a guy connects to a node, if he tells that node to connect to 2 nodes down, let's say Colorado Springs, he connects to Colorado Springs and he says, connect to FNL. So he just comes straight through Denver. You would see his call and COS and FNL and whoever he connected to there. Okay? See, right now, remember I said if you see somebody that says circuit and it doesn't go anywhere? Here's circuit. We got KE0QA coming from Denver into COS, I mean into FNL, but he hasn't gone anywhere. So we don't have the other half of the circuit here.
Now, I guess the way I could phrase this, if somebody else were connected to KQ0J and then to KE0QA, would that station, would KQ0J then be in the middle, even though you were looking at the circuit at KQ0J?
No, he'd be shown as an uplink. In other words, somebody connects to KQ0J and then he goes to COS? Is that what you're saying?
No, let's say KQ0J is somewhere in the middle of the circuit, as opposed to here it's really at the beginning of the circuit.
Right. If it's
KQ0J then be in the middle of the listing.
right.
Okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we have a station in Colorado Springs, let's back it up. A station in Pueblo connects to DPK in Pueblo and tells DPK to connect to Cheyenne. Well, Cheyenne will try to set up a link to Colorado Springs, to Denver, to FNL, to Cheyenne, and then he'll say link made back there to him, and he'll say connect to W60AV in Cheyenne. We go in the middle, we're going to see the 2 end nodes. We're not going to see the middle nodes.
Oh, okay.
See, so by the same token, if the guy connects this to DPK and then says connect to COS and then tells COS to connect to Cheyenne, then the circuit is, as far as we're concerned, is Colorado Springs to Cheyenne. It's the 2 end nodes of that particular link. So then I could say, well, okay, I know he's down there, so I'll go down to COS, I'll do a users, and it says, oh, he's DPK. So I connect to DPK, do a users, and there it shows circuit, COS, and downlink, or uplink in this case, because he established it. So then I could connect to him.
And the circuit will appear if you give the herd command, but that's the only time you'll see the circuit.
No, the users command.
Users.
Yeah, herd just shows call signs,
There's one right there.
Okay, we've connected to DEN again, and we show Joe uplinked to DEN. Then he established a circuit to FNL. Okay? And then from there, he comes back to here, and since we don't show a circuit or a downlink or an uplink, he's sitting, we know he's sitting here. This is a little confusing. I mean, this is not the normal thing you see, but you see the point is, we got an uplink, and then we got a circuit established in FNL, and then we have a circuit coming from FNL back to here. Does that make sense? In other words, Joe connected to DEN, told DEN to connect to FNL, told FNL to connect back to DEN. So we're uplink, a circuit to FNL, a circuit back from FNL to DEN and now it's sitting here. Now, if we could have, like say, a downlink to K0PGM or a circuit to Colorado Springs, depending upon what he tells DEN to do again. So you can connect to a node 4 or 5 times, you know, go out and come back, which is what we've done.
This reminds me, Bill, I meant to ask, does Thenet and Netrom have a stay command? Or
No.
something that's equivalent?
Unfortunately, they don't. That is frustrating because I'll set up a path all the way to California on 2 meters through about 13 nodes, and then somewhere there's a fade, and all of a sudden, everything's gone. It is kind of frustrating.
Let's start backing out there. Just so things go a little quicker.
Okay, does this make sense, this business here? If somebody is coming into your node and going out the node, it's going to be a circuit. If somebody's coming up, it's going to be an uplink, and out it's a circuit. If they're going to come in and then connect somebody local, that's an uplink and a downlink. Or if somebody comes in, it's a circuit and then a downlink if they connect somewhere locally.
Are there any nodes on frequencies around here other than 01?
Oh yeah. Most of your net ROMs are on 01. Your 01 is kind of your worldwide or US-wide net ROM VNet circuit. That's why we're always pushing for no BBSs, stuff like that, where you download and upload files, because that really slows things down. This is supposed to be a keyboard frequency where you can go all over the place. You can go out to California, Las Vegas, you can go all over the place on 2 meters. Okay? Or you can, by same token, you can hit a node like W0TX, cross-connect to W4EAW in Cummings, Georgia, cross-connect to their NetROM system and take a few NetROMs in and talk to your buddy there. I do this all the time in California. Most of the time I'll get on 20 meters direct so I don't have to go through TX, because, you know, the less nodes you have, the faster. I'll go out to California, cross over to 2 meters. The other night I was talking to a buddy of mine. He's a very brave packeteer. He was driving Highway 101 from Gilroy, California to San Francisco. And I chatted with him for an hour. And he always came back to me, so I know he didn't have an accident. He's got his keyboard, kind of like a heads-up display. He's got it mounted right on the dash. And you think I'm weird, Les? But there he is. There he is on 2 meters, you know, and I'm sitting here on 20 yakking with him for an hour. So you can use the HF links to jump through and bypass a lot of the 2 meter system and then get back on it. Here in Colorado or in Denver, 05 and 07 are your main BBS frequencies, and you have a lot of K nodes up there. K nodes are very prolific, and IMSIS nodes and some other types of nodes are what you find mostly on the other frequencies. DNets and NetROMs are almost always on 01. Now, where are we at?
Well, I'm trying to get reestablished here. I did this before. And there we go.
Okay, let's do an R for routes. When you do a routes command, you are asking that node, what radio links does he have? What direct links does he have? I'm not sure what's going on, but the other night we lost our link going over to Grand Junction and into Utah. And I think they're working on it. Okay. It says, DEN is saying that I have direct links to ARA4, which is a node on Morrison, Mount, Bob, do you know? What's that mountain there in Morrison? Where GVT lives? Mount Morrison? Doubleheader? Okay, it's up in that vicinity. Here's Fort Collins. Conifer. There you go. I knew that didn't sound right, but nobody's going to argue with me. So. DEN 450. Now, you see that's a 1. That means that it is hardwired to that node. So we know we have another node back to back with this one that happens to be on the 450 frequency. So if I said C-space DEN 450, with the way this thing is wired, I would be over there on 450. It does it automatically. Here's Kremling. 0 means it's a radio link. These things sit here in ID periodically. there's another, what is it? I think it's the, I think it's the nodes that'll give this to us. Anyway, this is the quality of the path, supposedly. It keeps track of how many times it has to try to get through to ARA4, how many retries, how many rejects, and it comes up with a number. 192 is about the best. Okay, this 255 says it's hardwired and perfect. You know, it's only a piece of wire, it ought to be perfect. You'll see 192 and on down. The smaller the number, the worse the path. This is a bunch of sysop stuff. I don't even remember what it is. You don't ever pay any attention to it. But anyway, right now, these are the only links they hear. If after a certain amount of time they lose contact, they will automatically take this out of the route table. Let's go ahead and do a nodes. Now this node command theoretically tells you all the nodes that he knows how to get to. It's very misleading because if sysops don't set them up right, it'll tell you can get there, but you can't. In other words, when DEN says, I know how to get to ARA4, it tells COS and it tells FNL. COS and FNL tell their neighbors, I know how to get to ARA4. It's via Denver, because Denver knows how to do it, and I can get to Denver. Well, you'll see some of these nodes that will give you screen after screen of nodes, and it just isn't going to work. You don't want to be doing this a lot, because that really ties up the frequency. Sitting there going nodes, nodes, and then you connect to the next node, you do nodes. If you're going to do a nodes list, you want to go about every 3 nodes, and we're going to get into this in just a second, and then do a nodes listing. But anyway, right now he's saying, well, I can get to Steamboat, I can get to Laramie, Grand Junction, DPK. I don't know where that is.
That's in Cheyenne.
Is that Cheyenne?
Either Cheyenne or Laramie.
Scottsbluff, Nebraska. This is Dinosaur National Park. This is in Nebraska. You know what that one is? Forgot.
Do you know what BLDLAN is?
Which one?
BLDLAN is the third one on the list.
Yeah, that's a
Older local area.
that's a local area network that K2NA is setting up there. It's, I think it's a NetROM. I'm not sure. Maybe MSys. Let's see. Well, this is BF is where is that, Joe? Oh boy. This is in Sterling, Colorado.
Forest, isn't it?
Black Forest. Okay, let's say I want to know how to get to, let's say, Wells. Pick Wells right now.
Cheyenne Wells?
No, that won't do it, Joe.
In Wells.
You need in. A rule of thumb is if a node is more than 3 nodes away from you that you want to connect to, you can almost guarantee that if you say C-space Salt Lake City, let's say he was showing Salt Lake City, which sometimes shows up here. If you do C-space Salt Lake City, which is about 6 or 7 nodes, you'll never make it. But if you go about every 2 to 3 nodes, you know, set up a connection. In this case, you'd connect to DEN. You would connect, tell DEN to connect to, say, Glenwood Springs, which has an intermediate node of Kremling. And then I would tell Glenwood Springs to connect to Dinah, which is Dinosaur National Park. I know that's going through Grand Junction. Now I'm going to tell you how to figure all this stuff out, but the rule of thumb is once you know a path, connect about every 3rd node and build your path up and you'll get there. Now the question is, how do you figure out the path? Well, the first thing we did is we asked DEN, well, how would you get to KRE? Well, the first thing I notice here is I got a path quality of 61. That's terrible. Usually that's up around 192, so there's something going on up there. But the only way he knows how to get there is KRE. Sometimes you'll see 2 or 3 calls. Let's try another one. Let's try Scottsbluff, Nebraska, in-space SCB.
Say, Bill, maybe I misunderstood on another presentation, but isn't there another way you can get the routes to, or is N space blah 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 the only way to get the routes to?
It's the only way I know of doing it on Netrom and Thenet. To find out how he... See, you're looking at his routing table. Right now, you've asked Denver, if I ask you to connect me to Scotts Bluff, how are you going to try? He's going to say, I'm going to try F&L, Fort Collins first, because he's got the best path, 108. If that fails, then I'm going to connect to Conifer Mountain and have him try it, but it's worth pass. So I'm going to try this first, try this second. So we're looking at the routing table. So let's go ahead and connect to F&L. And I'm writing this down because once I do this and I figure out the path from there on out, I'll just try about every third node. And I'll show you that. Okay, let's do a in-space SCB. Did you guys want to take a short break and maybe go to 9:30 since we lost so much time and we're so far behind, or just people have to get out of here? Because like I say, I apologize. We've had many technical difficulties. Okay, now F&L, his routing table says, I got 3 ways to get you to Scotts Bluff. I'll try this one, which I think is Cheyenne. And if that doesn't work, then I'll try this one, which isn't as good, and then I'll try that one, which is worse. So let's go ahead and do a C space N7JJY-2.
Why would N7JJY-3 be a less strong connection than -2?
That could be on a different frequency, a different location. Yeah. It's been so long since I've putted around in that part. I used to know Cheyenne or Wyoming and Colorado extremely well and Montana fairly well, but I haven't poked around for a long time up there, and it's all changed. This network, by the way, is a living, breathing amoeba. It's always changing because people add nodes, take nodes down, nodes crap out, da-da-da-da, you know. So it's always an experience. Okay, now, what I was saying is, so far I know this is my path. If I were going to go to Scotts Bluff, I'd say I'd connect to DEN. I would tell DEN, in this case, to connect to Laramie, so I bypassed F&L. Oh, now here's, okay, we've hit Scotts Bluff, Nebraska. Let's do a users on Laramie to see what's going on. If it gives us a command line, then we know it's an old version. But you see what the point I'm making is, you keep doing this, find out how you get there, pick the best route, connect to that. How do you get to where I want to go? Pick the best route. You set up these links, and you write them down. So that next time you can connect to node number 1 nearest you, jump, tell him to connect to the 3rd node, tell that node to connect to the 3rd node down. You see what I'm saying? And you usually get through that way. But if you tell a node to connect to the 6th node out, and that node to the 6th node, you usually won't make it. Theoretically, it's supposed to work. It doesn't, and I can't explain it. Boy, is there something good on TV tonight, or is everybody out enjoying the nice weather? Nobody using this one either. See, here's a circuit coming in, and we're not going anywhere. So that's how you explore the network. Now, since we're out here about 3 nodes out, I could go ahead and do a nodes list again, and I will see new nodes. In other words, when I connected to DEN, and there we go, Cheyenne and Laramie, cross-link to 145. There's the cross thing we're talking about. Other, remember we saw that? So here we can cross frequencies. On DNets and NetRoms, you don't type X and that sort of thing. If they have crossbands, you see it just like we've seen, and you just go ahead and connect, and you're over there and you don't even know it. And that gets you sometimes, because I was on the East Coast one time, zipping along, and next thing I knew, I was in L.A. I go, wait a minute, I'm in Virginia. Where am I in L.A.? I hit a satellite link between 2 NetRoms and didn't know it. So all of a sudden, I was on the wrong coast. And I really didn't want to be on the West Coast. I wanted to be on the East Coast. See? But anyway, if I connect to DEN and I do a nodes listing, and then I connect to F&L and I do a nodes listing, I'm going to see pretty much the same nodes I already saw in DEN. So the rule of thumb is, if you're exploring, like say you want to find out how to get to California, and we saw wells over there, we know that's in Nevada, so we would start working our way out there. Once we got about 4 or 5 nodes out, we do another nodes list to see all the new nodes that pop up. Now we'll see LA, Las Vegas, we'll see new nodes. So don't go to a node, do a nodes listing, connect to the next node, do a nodes listing, connect to the next one, because somebody might bomb your house, you know, because you just tie up the frequency doing redundant information. Okay, so go about every 3rd to 4th node, and then the information is not redundant, it's new because you've gone out further. Question?
Bill, when you're trying to connect like that, you shouldn't even think of topography. In the sense that if I was going to Nevada, I'd try to go through Wyoming, but you're saying you can go through Grand Junction, or through...
Well, you kind of think of topography, but it can surprise you. There, you know, normally we have a nice link from Kremling to Glenwood Springs to Grand Junction to Dinosaur National Park and then parts west. Right now that path is down. I think they're working on it, but you can go up to Wyoming and go across and come back down. The other day when I went to San Francisco, I had to go clear down to Arizona and up through Las Vegas to get to San Francisco because I couldn't go direct. This is staying strictly on 2 meters. Now once you start learning HF gateways, then you can jump and bypass 2 or 3 states at a hop, see? Things like that. Okay, now we've made it there. Why don't we grab a quick cup? We're going to go 9:30. Is that a problem, Keith? We asked everybody but you.
On the mud, I don't know what's going on.
Oh, because I want to demo CQ, and that's going to be... Oh, how about ARA 4? Try it, see if you can connect to ARA 4. Question?
Yeah, you said you were going to cover the CQ, and I'm wondering, would you also talk about whether and how you could call CQ on the K node?
Okay, on the K node, you cannot call CQ because there is no CQ command. Ah, there we go. Do a user while I'm talking. The only thing you can do on the K node is connect to it and see who it hears. Okay. Now you will see some people will say C space CQ 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 3 times in a row. Now, what happens there, that's really not a good practice. What I do, if I happen to be sitting on 2 meters, you know, maybe for some reason I don't want to get on HF, I will get on W0TX, I will say cross connect CQ, 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 and then I'll go down on 20 and turn my monitor on and I'll see somebody trying to connect to this thing. Then I'll turn right around and stop my CQ and connect to them. There is a way to do it through the gateway. Okay, let's just do this. Look at this for a second. What do we got here? Okay, here we have W0LJF-15, so we assume he's coming from somewhere else, to DEN. Now this is ARA4, so we know it's going because we're connected here, so it's going from DEN to ARA4, and then to Sterling. Is that Sterling, Les?
Yes.
Sterling, that's the call of that alias.
That's the High Plains Amateur Radio Club.
Okay. So we are uplinked, and somebody else is coming through from DEN and going to HPARC. So in answer to your question, see, our node is not showing in the middle. We know it's right here. Does that make sense?
No, I believe you.
Anyway, what we could do, if we wanted to, is we could connect to HPRC and then do a users again and see if this is the downlink or the uplink, because we don't know who established this. And if we wanted, we could connect to them. I have a lot of fun. I did this the other day. I went on 20 meters. I connected to a gateway in Amarillo, Texas. I went 3 nodes in. I did a user. I saw an uplink, and I connected to the guy, and I said, "Hi, Bill from Denver." And all I got was 4 whats and 3 question marks, and how did you do it? I love to do that because most people don't understand all this stuff, and I have a lot of fun. I did this about a month ago to a guy in California. I went 6 nodes in to Central California, connected to this guy. He said, you know, I told him how I did it, and he said, "Well, I don't understand. I'll let you do it. This is great." And then 3 days later, I got his QSL card plus a hard copy of the whole QSO. He says, "I had this hanging on my wall to show people what you can do because I don't understand it." So it's a lot of fun to do this, you know, to connect to a node, see a circuit, follow the circuit down, see where the uplink or downlink is, and then connect to the guy. Anyway, the crossband digi right here. One way to call through CQ through a node is to use the crossband digi function. You would go into your TNC and you would type unproto, because you're going to be sending an unproto command, a CQ, space CQ space V for via space W0TX-3. So that's the address. You want this unproto to go into TX. He's going to see the -3 and he's going to digi it out on the other port, in this case 20 meters. And then you type in your beacon text, you type btext, because you're going to beacon CQ, you're going to say btext CQ Denver, QTH Denver or something like that. Let them know where you're at. You don't have to say CQ because you're already doing it up in the unproto. And then you say beacon every 5 minutes. Don't beacon every 1 minute or every 30 seconds. Because if somebody's looking for a CQ, they have turned their monitor on to monitor or read unproto frames. On a PK232 and a PK88, it's monitor 1, which says I want to hear all unproto frames. What is it on a MFJ? Anybody know? I don't even know what it is on a CAM. Is it monitor on?
Normally it's put in the keyboard and put the CQ in there, and it'll hit B-text and goes out, B-text and goes
Right, but
out.
this is to read it. In other words, if I want to look for CQs, I take my PK232 and I just say monitor space 1.
M space ON.
Okay. So if somebody's looking for a CQ, periodically they'll look at the screen and they'll say, oh, there's a guy calling CQ. So once it's a capture on the screen, you don't have to sit there and keep doing it every 30 seconds. So just do it like every 5 minutes. Now, somebody out there on 20 meters will see you, and he's going to see that it's your call via W0TX-3. So he's going to type C space your call space via space W0TX-3. He's on 20. When that packet goes out, WG0N-3 hears it and he repeats it on 2 meters and he connects to you. So now you're talking crossband in a crossband digi mode. Now what I like to do is tell the guy, okay, now I want to connect to you direct through the node because it's more efficient. You should not really digi crossband because it has the same limitations we talked back about 2 years ago. Remember when we talked about, when you go through digis, how inefficient it is? So what I tell the guy is, okay, stand by, I'm going to drop the link and reconnect. So then I connect to W0TX-7, and then I say X space, whoever the guy was, space S, and then TX connects to him down there, and now he's connected to the node down here, I'm connected to the node up here, I get my stuff to the node here, the node takes care of getting it to him, and vice versa. Whereas if I'm digiing, well then if it dies anywhere, it just totally dies, because only the two ends are responsible for the connection now. The node doesn't care, he just passes it through. Okay, so that is one way to, and really that's the only time you should use this crossband digi is to call CQ. That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on that? How to call CQ through a K node? Okay, now, can you go ahead and turn your monitor on?
Sure.
I want you to sleep. Well, there's Gino and Chance talking, Les. Okay. Go back to command mode and type unproto, because we don't know what you...
You sure we want to be on proto now?
No, go to command mode and type unproto. I want to see what's in your unproto.
CQ.
Okay. Now,
Command mode.
just type CQ return
Only I gotta be,
in the converse mode.
I gotta go to converse, and now I type CQ.
Just type CQ.
There it was.
Where'd it go?
Right there. KE0.
Oh, there it is. K0QA-14. CQ. See, in other words, we monitored, we typed CQ. ARA4 saw that, and he sent it out as KE0QA-14. Remember, we're -1. We went to the node, and it normally would have put a 15 on if we were nothing. But since we're a -15, it made it a -14. So here's KE0QA-14 calling CQ. This is the CAM saying that it's on the voice side, and it's a UI, an unnumbered information frame. So we sent one CQ out, and that's all that goes out. Now this node will sit there for 15 minutes waiting for somebody to answer you. And if they don't, then it will disconnect you. So every time I type the word CQ, it will send it out with your call. Now let's try something else. Type CQ space. Now all we need is for somebody to answer us and want to talk. CQ space, this is a test. Return. There, now we can put text on the end of that CQ. Okay? So that's how to call CQ with text.
That's through a NetROM.
So that's the NetROM responding to my CQ. When you connect to a NetROM or the net and you type CQ, he's going to take your call and put the CQ on it. And then if you have any text, he'll send that out also. Okay? Now here's Chance sending connect request to AL7GQ. So that's how you get a node to call CQ for you.
Now, Bill, I'm sorry, that ARA4 is NetROM, is that correct?
It's either NetROM or VNet, one of the two, I don't remember.
Why, when it's giving the CQ, we don't see ARA4 identifying itself?
Because it's repeating you. Remember I said anytime you connect to a node like TX and you go out on 20 meters, it's your call with the dash number on it. Because TX or ARA4 is going to identify every 10 minutes or whatever. Okay? So as far as everybody's concerned, this is you calling CQ. It's not ARA4. So anybody that connects to a node, when he goes out either to connect to somebody or to send CQ or whatever, it's his call with the dash number. Otherwise it can be confusing. How would you know who's who? So ARA4 only uses this call when it talks to you.
Okay, now if somebody said, if I were sitting at home and I said M heard and I saw KE0QA, I would see KE0QA, I would show it as connected through ARA4, correct? Even though it's appearing right there now.
What kind of TNC?
This is
The PK232 and the PK88 only show the calls. It would have said that I heard KE0QA-14, I heard this guy, I heard W0TX-7. It doesn't show routings. The CAM does. The CAM would show routings. I'm not sure how it would show that on the CQ. But you would connect to KE0QA-14. And all of a sudden we would get a message on our screen saying connected to W6OAV, whoever connected to you.
Well, would the node recognize his response to dash 14?
Mm-hmm.
And then repeat it to him?
Wait a minute now.
No, to the original.
Yeah, to the original. Remember I said earlier that if I connected to ARA14 and then I was connected to FNL, you would see KE0QA-14 connected to FNL. And if you tried to connect to KE0QA-14, you wouldn't connect to him. That's his call going out of the node, but he's down here connected on the uplink. The only exception is when you call CQ. Now you're telling the node, hey, open up the door and let anybody connect to me with that SSID. So that's a special case of when you see a call with a dash number coming out of a node, you can actually connect to it. In this case, you're actually connecting to the node. You're not connecting to KE0QA because he's down here with a -1 call. See, so the rule of thumb is when you have a node, you can connect to the node. If you see people coming out of the node, you can't connect to them. Cannot connect on the node. Unless you type CQ, then you're telling the node, okay, in this case, let people connect to me. Does that make sense?
I have a question then. When Joe typed unproto, it showed CQ/CQ, correct? But then
Yeah, what that is saying is, and we haven't used that command yet. We haven't used the unproto yet.
right.
But that's saying on this one, he wants the unproto on both ports to be CQ. He could make the unproto on one port be this, and one, and on the other port be something else. You can split them. Okay, now go ahead and disconnect, and we're going to beacon CQ directly out of here, but we're going to relay it through ARA4 so we can actually see it, because we can't see ourselves transmitting, but we'll make ARA do it. And this is how you would do it if you're going to go through a gateway. So type unproto in the command mode. Just unproto, no carriage return. Now see, is this the VHF port or is this the HF? I don't remember.
No idea.
Let's put it on both sides then.
Okay.
Okay, space, CQ. Oh, I think they had the digi turned off in ARA4. Let's try it through TX. We can copy TX. CQ space via space DRC. That's the alias for. Okay, then slash and then the same thing again. Normally we would just have this much where we just call beacons. Okay, but we want TX to repeat it so that we can see it. Okay, now.
Where was it?
See, now everybody's getting on the frequency. You recognize UAs and all that. We want DRC to repeat our CQ. If we wanted to go out in 20 meters, we would have had W0TX-3. DRC is our 2 meter, our same port digi. -3 is the crossband digi. So go ahead and go to the command mode.
Command.
Okay, let's see. Go to do a K. Go to converse. Now hit a carriage return. Hit it twice. There we go. There's our CQ. Normally we would turn beacon on and let it do it by itself, but we forced it to do it. So we're calling CQ and DRC. See the asterisk? He's telling us that he heard DRC do it. He didn't hear us do it. We can't hear ourselves talk. Now the same thing. Type, go back to command mode and type btext. See what you got for btext. You don't have anything, I guess.
Nope.
Type btext and just test. Okay, now type, okay, you see we forced it again. Where was it here? Force it again. I lost it. Go to the converse mode and hit return. Okay, now type, this is a test. See, it's just like the node. We forced RT and C to send something. Now, if you had beacon on, and let's say we said beacon every 5 minutes, you would see this go out with whatever's in your beacon text, which he had as test. So in other words, when you turn the beacon on, whatever you have in unproto appears up here. So you set up your routing path. And then whatever you have in the B text is appended onto this. So I have unproto, when I'm setting this unproto, CQ via W0TX-3, B text, QTH Denver, Colorado, and every time my TNC would beacon out, the guys on 20 meters would see this and whatever you had in B-text. So I can beacon direct just by saying proto space CQ, and then whatever I want in the B-text, and that just goes out for my TNC. If I want to relay it, then I put a via in here. So that's how you call CQ direct, or how you call CQ through something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Bill, now, one thing on that, when you're calling CQ through the node, does the node take over?
No, he's just diging. He's just repeating in this case.
So, in other words, every time that CQ goes out, you're actually transmitting.
Well, we transmitted, okay, and then ARA, or DRC rather, heard it, and it repeated it, and that's what we heard here. See, DRC heard it and
Right,
repeated
but
it.
every time the CQ appears, it means that you have transmitted it from
Yeah,
here. Okay.
yeah. Now, let's say somebody is sitting there and he hears this, he sees your CQ, and then he hears DRC repeat the CQ. Well, he's going to connect to you direct. But if he only sees this, then he's going to have to connect to you via DRC to get back to you. Or if he's smart, he wouldn't say, well, that DRC is W0TX, I'll connect to W0TX and then tell it to connect to you, because that's better than using a digi. See how all that works?
So you can go through the node, or, connected to the node or on proto, so either way.
On Netrom and Thenet, you can go either way. So I could connect to DEN, set up a link to Salt Lake City, get a Netrom there, and say, CQ, please answer me, I'm in Denver. And the people in Salt Lake City will see your call, CQ, and your text. And that node will sit there for 15 minutes waiting for an answer. And then you can do it again as many times as you want. Just don't overdo it. So you can go through a bunch of nodes and then call CQ. Now when it comes to K nodes, you can't make K nodes call CQ. Okay? But you can call CQ by diging through the K node, either on the same band you're on, like we just did here with DRC, or by using W0TX-3, which means they go out in 20 meters. Okay? And then once somebody connects to you, you're best, if it's nodes that you're diging through, to say, let me connect to the node and tell the node to connect to you, that sort of thing, because it's more efficient. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay, next week we'll talk a little bit about this. Here's somebody that's connected to DEN box, which is PBS, and left a message and had it saved.
Yeah, that was to Dave, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's to Dave. Now, was this guy connected to the mailbox? He got a logon prompt, and then he typed up there, send to Dave, and then it said enter the message. He entered this stuff here. See, we're reading mail. At 4 p.m. I should have my mailing going. 7 p.m. time to show up there, question mark, save the message and logged off. That's one thing nice about Packet. You can just leave it, it's an answering machine. I got home tonight and I had one message from Texas and 3 from California and 1 from here locally. So it's kind of neat. Okay, why don't we go ahead and break, and then we'll kind of review this, think about it. In your textbooks that we handed out, you'll see all this stuff. We show a connect, we show a JL, we show an NL, we show all the things that we did tonight in those handouts. So you might want to read over those. If you have any questions, then at the beginning of the next class, bring them up and we'll go over that again, okay? Because here we kind of demoed it. There you have hard copies of it, so kind of study that. There's this thing on CQ that shows how it works.